My name is Jesse Srpan. I own Raw Iron Choppers located out of Perry, Ohio. It's about 35 minutes east of Cleveland, Ohio. Man, coming up, it was weird. There was no social media. It's like kind of the last of the Mohicans. Odd, if you wanted to watch something be inspired, you had to go to a Barnes and Noble. You had to go to a store and get a magazine to really, get inspired by stuff. But I would say the big one for me was Motorcycle Mania. That was huge. Like watching Jesse James, that first episode, bend tubing and make sheet metal. That was kind of what really got me going and inspired. The biggest crazy part of it was I bought a welder at 13, and getting that welder was nuts. I never talked to anybody about it. I never told anybody about it. And I went in the Sears catalog and found a Lincoln Electric like SP135, and I bought it, plugged it in, terrified of it, arcs, sparks, didn't know what I was doing. And I was in love. It was wild to take two pieces of metal and, put them together and get this like cool creation. So then I kind of got into like mini bikes, built mini bikes, started doing shows, did local autoramas, got around with some guys that actually did big bikes. And that kind of just took off for me, like this love affair. If we really think about it, like the early 2000s, like the pinnacle of choppers. It was this new thing about having fat tires or long rake bikes or skinny tires. It was neat because everyone wanted to build stuff, and there was just so much of it. It was almost like it was like the Super Bowl for bikers at that time for about a good 10 years. And that for me is like, I wasn't in the business at the time, but I was so inspired. There was so much an over good saturation of choppers at that time that influenced me to be who I am today. So my dad, I mean, through and through, he was one of those guys that I think rode a Honda Dream when he was 16, and some guys were like laughing at him, kicking rocks and stuff. And he said, I'm gonna own a Harley one day. So he had pan heads, shovel heads, and he just always been a tinker. He ended up going to engineering school, and he did construction and like just a very hands-on guy. So bikes were his thing. My mom used to live in Pittsburgh, and he lived up here in Willoughby, near actually this residence. And he would get on his 1950 pan and just boom, back and forth all weekend long, riding snow. So I would say like he's way more the badass than I was growing up with, choppers and lifestyle. I mean, he lives, ate, breathed, slept it. I mean, it wasn't even a thing to him. It's just what you did. You didn't have a bagger. You didn't have electric start and stuff. I mean, you did, but he couldn't afford a newer bike. So for him, that was just kind of what he did. So that was a lot of inspiration. When one day he took a photo album and he goes, this is how I used to be, and this is what bikes were like. Not all these big dog choppers and American, iron horse bikes. It's really like this was our lifestyle. And there's a tent. You can see in the back of a picture, there's a tent on a picnic table or a tree. And he did it, man. Like that was kind of neat. So I didn't respect that till my later years, because I think I was a little commercialized by like the Tuttles and like the Jesse James stuff. Like, oh, you could build bikes and be cool, be in magazines. But like it was actually a lifestyle for like my family growing up. And they became, family oriented parents, that they kind of lost a lot of that lifestyle. But when I started taking kind of a liking to choppers and stuff, Rick was like, come here, son. I don't want you on a sport bike. Let's do choppers and stuff. So went crazy, welding, fabbing. And I would say he was huge inspiring. But also, I raced motocross. I had mini bikes. And since a young age, I think it's just in my blood. I always was tinkering. I couldn't leave something well alone. I would have to take it apart, put it back together. For me, the first time I ever saw a stick weld, I was like, what is this garbage? You always think of a bead of dimes. You always think that really nice weld, clean. And someone goes, that's a test for doing bridges. That's a stringer, weld, that's a weave weld. And it's a 1-inch piece of steel. And I'm like, man, you can make all this cool stuff. So for me, it was like, I was definitely influenced by the welding, the bikes, the TV stuff, but my brain was also tweaking in different directions. It was like, what could we make? What could we do? And I got into ironwork, got into pipe welding, nuclear stuff. And it was neat to see all these facets because you could take the same creativity of building a bike and you could put it into your craft and work. And it was neat, man. It was like, I can go anywhere with this. But what I always tell people, it's kind of like having a mental toolbox of skills. You can lose all your tools, you can lose your car, you can lose whatever, but no one can take the skills that you have and that you've learned and adapted to. And no one can take the welding from you, the machining, the engineering. And that's something I think that's always a great asset because you can always go anywhere, whether you're doing bikes, tanking, ironwork. You can do it, and there's no limit to it at all, man. I think the hardest part of fabrication is is fixing all the screw ups. You know, when you got to actually get someone's crusted up bike and it's bent up in a wreck, how do you straighten a frame? You get something that's rusted, a compactor at work, and it's buried in water. Where do you want to do it? Because they can't buy a new one. They got to salvage half of it, put the other part together. So to me, that helped me a lot, even in this field with bikes and like in my company, was how to take stuff and refab it, re-weld it. And every weld's not pretty. It's not like it's a brand new piece of steel. You're through paint, grime, grit, oil. So I mean, like that stuff there, man, was a total pain in the ass. But I love it. I mean, like it's kind of like a pig in shit and mud. I'm just like the dirtier it is, the better. It sucks. It's hard work, but they need to pay somebody to do it these days, and they're willing to pay people that are good fabricators. I feel like I said, it's kind of last the Mohicans feel. I feel like it's a dying generation of the boomers, and they're retiring, and it's like I feel like I got a hell of a craft, man. When I was growing up was like, go to computers, do this, go get a standardized job, go work here for big corporations. And I was like, nope, I want to go work and I want to work my ass off. But there is a lot to say with that. You do start to slowly get older and those jobs start to wear you out. When you're in your 20s, it's easy to do. You start to feel it. And I'm not even, getting older yet where I'm in my 40s, 50s, but I have friends that are 40, 50, 60 years old and they're still doing blue collar jobs and they're tough, but now they're even needed to work harder the same way I am because there's not there's a hot commodity for jobs, but there's not enough people to actually resource and do the skills for it. When we first did the mini bike thing, my dad's like, this is cool. It's a father-son thing. We did the colors off the camel bike Jesse James built from Motorcycle Mania 1. And we just did it, man. We just kind of winged it. And that was cool. I think the early days, you're not into it for anything. There's no money in it. You might get a little trophy. There was no big checks then and stuff. Man, I'm actually just almost getting reminiscent at the moment, but you saw the hunger he wanted with what we were doing. And yeah, man, sorry. Holy shit. I actually feeling this one. It's humbling. I guess when I'm stuttering right now, it's so humbling to realize that you had a little mini bike and your dad was like there hungry with it. And he's like trying to show you things he knows, but you're both learning how to weld. You never built bikes before. He would tinker on them, but this was something new. But we went to that first show. We were stoked, like paint's on point, finishes are on point. There's another mini bike. It's got orange peel. It's got cracks. We're going to whoop its ass. Dude, sure as shit. He had to console me, like not crying, but I was dead quiet in the car after packing up. I got my ass kicked by that thing. And that moment for my dad and I went from like, this is fun, and we might get a trophy here and there, to like getting an early onset of bloodthirsty, competitive. And you wanted to kick the world's ass, but you were up against some of the heaviest hitters. Mini bikes were easy. That was the fun part. We built another one. It was pretty bougie. Man, this green chopper, flawless. We even had Donnie Smith invite us in '06. Going up there, and that was neat, man. That was humbling. I don't think it was like 6th or 8th place. We were in a pro class. That was awesome. But again, my dad's enthusiasm was like so hungry. But then we made it legit. We got a big chopper. It took like 2 years to build while I was in high school. And then my dad still was like, let's hit this out. The humbling thing for my dad was there's a lot of good builders at that level. I mean, we're talking 2008, so there was high-end paint. Money was no issue. There was teams of people at shops building high-end bikes. And that was a rough one for him. But then like kind of when I graduated in '09, I showed my dad like what we could do between the welding side of it. And, I got him even into welding. I was like, Dad, you should take some welding classes. You should do stuff with me. So it was really cool to see how that was changing from, it went from like innocent, non-competitive to competitive, humbling in '08. And then it was like our teen years, like into like the Discovery years and the magazines. Like, I started listening to guys like yourself and Brian, and hey man, if you want stuff to be perfect, you got to do every fastener, the way it needs to be done on the bike. You need to, clean up fins and clean up this and make it as perfect as you can. And I think then my dad kind of like realized this is like going to the Super Bowl. You can't just throw football in the front yard and kind of tackle each other and like maybe play at a side league. Like this is the big leagues of professional. So I think then he kind of was like, man, I'm getting older. Like this is a young man's hustle. I mean, it was 22 hours a day of no sleep. So my dad's like, you know what? I did this growing up. I worked like crazy. I built houses. So he kind of took a step back, but through that, 15, 17 years, it was really neat, like to see kind of that phase of how he was as a father, but proud. I mean, he told me, don't let me down. I remember when he took me, because I had the company name in '08, he goes, you're 18. I got you out of school today. So where are we going? He goes, the lawyers. I'm signing everything in the company. We make no money. He goes, either you figure out what you want to do with this company and make it flourish, or just have a company name and put it in the ground. It's not going to cost you anything if you just go do something else and go to college. And I mean, I remember telling him like, probably 2018, I said, this is a sick addiction. I said, I can't stop, man. I said, this is like drugs. And he goes, man, I can't keep up with you. You're crazy. Your friends, you're traveling. And it was kind of like neat to watch it kind of be like long enough that we kind of passed that torch a little bit, but he's still involved. But if you bring him in here, he'll start telling war stories like, man, F this, like this is crazy, all the traveling, but the memories flood, kind of where I hesitated, like you feel all that stuff, you lived it. It was like 2012, man, and I got a call from one of my mentors from vocational school. I also took classes under him at Lincoln Electric and Lakeland, and met tons of people through Lincoln. It actually was really what set the torch for me. His name was Ryan Eubank. Ryan got me involved with people, said, hey, this kid's hungry. And one day I remember Ryan called me and said, hey, when you're done with some of your engineering classes, come down to my office. The school is going to begin rephasing to do a bigger weld program and expand rooms and get it to about a 20-person weld school. And he goes, I want you on board. And I was like, what? I was like, that's crazy, and prior to that, I did a lot of stuff with Lincoln in 2010. So Lincoln Electric, for years, I did a lot of sponsory stuff with them, worked with them as a consultant, welding instructor. This machine's 14 years old. This is like getting antiquated because a lot of inverter technology, but this machine's tried and true. I bought it from a buddy, Lon Damon, back in 2010. I think the machine's even older than that, but a lot of these machines would be inside NASCAR shops, Indy shops, and then once they were outdated or needed to be reset somewhere else, the weld school would buy them. And so I bought this from Lon that he got. This originally was out of a NASCAR shop, but this machine here, it does everything. It's water cooled. Not the best on electricity because it's transformer based, but it gets it done. About 400 amp welding capacity, welds aluminum phenomenally. But this machine here, for a machine I think I paid $2,000 for used, I could tell you that, man, in 14 years I have made, all my money back, 10, 20 fold. So this thing here, that's my bread and butter. But you gave me any machine, I'd be able to, weld with it, buzz with it. But this is pretty much my favorite. And to tell somebody the quality of this, though, the water pump is the only thing that went bad because the water line actually started disintegrating, so it ran through the pump. And I think there's a place in California that you can get repop because they use a soda fountain machine water cooler pumps. And it's like $80, put it on, and that's the only thing that's ever taken a crap on this. So, tried and true, Miller and Lincoln are really good machines, but this machine definitely kicks ass for me. I also have a power MIG. It's under there. We use that for a lot of production, flux core, and MIG welding, but that's pride and joy of what we use here, man. We would go to EAA Oshkosh, and I learned how to teach. And I'll tell you what, it's a funny story. When I started out teaching, I sucked. I would have a pamphlet, and I'd be like, hey, guys, this is TIG welding. And it's really cool, and you should TIG weld. And you're like nerves, and you can't speak, and you don't really know how to communicate and convey with the public and the crowd. And I remember some guy in the front goes, hey, Bob, did you get all that bullshit? It was a 45-minute seminar, and it was 10 minutes. And I remember like that first really big screw up was it made me a better welding instructor, was to take more time, be more personal and stuff. But so I had a little bit of a background, but it is a different dynamic. You can speak to a crowd, you can do a seminar, but it's different when you start teaching public. When you start teaching public education and at a college level, you realize the welding's the easy part, but actually the psychology side of it is really tough. It's an overcoming change, and you're not trained to be that way, and you're also young and you're trying to do that. So in 2012, he asked me to be part of this whole thing with Lakeland Community College. And wow, like the first couple years, it was a whole learning curve. It was, okay, you take people, show them how to weld, but yet they don't want to show up for more than 2 hours a day. And then you start realizing, like, what are we going to do? What inspired me, guys, was watching people get a job. I think the first student I ever got a job to blew my mind. It was like just under 6 figures. And they're like, hey, man, I came here to weld. Like, I didn't know where I wanted to be. And they call you a year later or 6 months later, and they go, thank you for everything. And all of a sudden, it's like, you just like, this is what it's about. This is really why I'm here. I would say when I really put effort into everybody and the way I wanted to convey it, that was mind-numbing. That was it. But that was addictive too. But then COVID changed that course too. TV was wild, man. Everyone thinks I chased that with, like Ronnie, Gary, and all them guys. And I actually thought they put that up to me. I came in one night. I still lived at home, I think, with my parents. I was just getting ready to move out. And I got a call, and it's this guy from Pilgrim Studios. And he's like, hey, man, I want to do an interview and all this stuff with TV. And I was like, not interested. At that time, I think I was doing like $9,000-$10,000 a month in work. So I was making good money. I was making bank. And I heard that TV was where people go to die. I also heard how it changed your dynamic of your shop. And it also killed the guy who was the front and center, which would be me, the builder and owners. A lot of it goes to your head. And I just was like, I'm not interested, man. I'm not doing that. And like I said, everyone thought I was like, yeah, I won. I'm like the hyper dog. I didn't want it. I actually was like not even interested. So I remember it was like Pat, Porky, and there was like some other perspective shop, and they snuffed me out because I remember Porky called me. It was like, I think you're number 4, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I'm it, you know? And when I did my interview with them, it was funny because all I did was talk shit on everybody. I was like the cockiest 23-year-old you could be. I was like, fuck all these guys, and these guys are dicks, and, you know, I'm better. I weld nuke shit. We make money, and, you know, we build our own frames, and we're licensed manufacturers. And I remember I fed this bullshit to them because, like, this is the only way they're gonna get us to put us on TV. Day 1 comes along, man. We do the real airing in like 10 years ago in January. They're like, do the thing, do the shit talking. And I'm like, I'm just here to work, guys. I was like, the same way you guys know me at shows where I'd be dead quiet. And they're like, say something about Pat, say something about Port. I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't even care about them guys. I just want to make shit. And I remember they took me to the side, the editors, and they're like, you got to do the thing. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, you know what? These guys flap their gums. I'm like, all they're doing is just flap their dick suckers. And the guy's like, yeah, that's it. Keep saying it. And I'm like, again, I'm not really interested. I represent kids. I represent, you know, a school, multiple companies that sponsored us. And I said, I can't really do that, you know, and they got me to say some things, but they basically told me this isn't the learning channel, kid. You can't go long-winded about how to build a frame in a gas tank, but that's all I was there for. I just wanted to use it as a resource tool to inspire people to make this stupid stuff. I always said I did TV because if you don't do it, it's kind of like, you'd make too many what ifs. It was fun. It was neat to build a bike. I mean, I would say the best experience was your friends. I mean, you worked 28-hour days and you make nap on your futon for 10, 15 minutes at a time. And we had good stories and good memories and a lot of wild shit, man. But I would never do it again. I wouldn't advise, if you want to make your company work, like, don't 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 do it. You know, I mean, for me, it just was an experience. I was young, but I've had 2 offers since, and I was like, nah, I'm good, you know. So I could even tell you from the beginning how it was like, if you remember like 2010, like chopper stuff was kind of dying, man. It was not the, like, you could just throw 80 grand to have a bike built. People were going into the bagger era, kind of the Dyna era, Softail stuff. So it was changing quickly. And I said, how do I make money doing what I'm doing to still feed my addiction of motorcycles? And I'm like, welding. You know, I went and did ironwork stuff. I did all this pipe welding stuff, but I said maybe my skills will really represent me, just not my motorcycles. So I went out and I was really like, I'm going to drive this hard, man, with welding. And if you think about it, there's good welders and there's a lot of shitty welders out in society. Like, you meet people, they're bubble gumming shit together, and they're like, this is great, like this is good, and you're like, not really. So I started studying that, and I started learning more with the guys at Lincoln, like what's a actual good weld, like what's the science behind it, learning all that. So for me, I started diving into the science of it and what it could represent for my company. How do we make better parts? How do we repair things? And honestly, again, it was a need. So with that need, I always said I'm always gonna weld. Actually, I remember Doug said it best. He goes, man, you just welding. I think it was like 2011. He goes, you just welding to make ends meet to build choppers? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, the dynamic was, as a business plan, was do welding. You're never not gonna have work, whether you're repairing a car out in your yard or you're working on a tank site. Like, someone's gonna call you. I've had people beg me to go on job sites as a contractor across the country and say, we can't find any welders right now. Will you come with us? And I'm like, I can't. I got commitments at home and stuff. But the welding side and coinciding with bikes, which was neat, is because the welding stuff introduced the blue collar people to what we built for bikes. Like, I would legit drive the choppers on job sites and have a backpack and a welding hood. They're like, bro, did you just drive like a $80,000 chopper on a job site? I'm like, sure did. And like, that was neat because I got smart. I was like, that's a calling card. You're gonna have a factory full of 40 people walk out on lunch break. One of them's got to have a Harley, right? What, like 5 of them's got a Harley. Then you're like, what do I do with all this work? So I just started infiltrating that way, you know? And so I always use the welding as, you know, no option B, but it was the original option. And then the chopper stuff, and it made it happen, man, because this shit really is hobbyist stuff. I mean, when you think about it, it's not a necessity. To us, it seems like a necessity, but to most of the world, it's a luxury thing. I saw just the 2000s. I saw fat tire era. I saw the corporate commercial, like TV, like AutoZone commercials with bike builders. And I think it gave a wrong idea. And I think it goes back to Rick with that photo album of like, this is really the lifestyle, what we have, you know? And to me, man, I think, yeah, going back simpler times, keeping this stuff simple. I think that brings back the fun in it. I think a lot of times we lost the fun because everyone was trying to just corporatize themselves and make it more professional, but it's really about having a beer, man, and just talking and camaraderie and riding choppers, and that's really what it was about. It took me a long time to learn that myself, it's just about having fun. I had a crusty garage and I wanted it to be a man cave. Like this whole place was going to be like shag carpet, choppers all in the corner, dirt bikes. I mean, it was going to look pretty high end, And I was sitting here and I go, I'm going to make this a shop. I could work from home, man. This would be cool. Like, and I hate working from home. I always thought my commute's 45 minutes one way from where I lived is the way you get your calls done. You have an hour and a half a day to get calls done. If you're pissed off, if you're in a good mood, you can defuse, you can amp yourself up. And it was an adjustment to walk right out your house. But man, them really tired nights, like I can really close that door, walk to the front porch, and then go to bed. And like, that's pretty nice. And it's like, this is all the room I need. Sure, I'd love to have a bigger shop, man, but you're only one guy to build a bike at a time. Yeah, the checks on the walls, like those Ultimate Builder shows, that's really where the proof was in the pudding a lot of times because there was your peers judging him. And, we won Modified Champion in 2018 with a FXR that was not the trending T-bar, big fairing. We did like a tracker style. We did like the TV stuff. We won first place with that going up against Pat, which who knows if that was scripted or not and how they did voting. I don't know. I don't care. It's cool. We still won that stuff. But, just all the shows. I mean, the saddest part, guys, is I probably have a trophy room just the size of this shop. But in 2014, all those burned down in a fire. In all my plaques. So like I have plaques still in storage in other places, but some of these are the most memorable. Like Modified Champion, like the one behind here, the Willie's Tropical Show, that was sweet, man. I brought my one chopper, my 124, and Mikey and Ronnie from Chop Docs painted it up. And to get Perowitz's pick, that was like, okay, cool. I won TV. I'd done all this big stuff, but like to have the guy, like the dude pick that was like, to me, that was huge stuff. It's cool, but eventually, like, that stuff dies off. It's what you gave back and the memories. Like the Ultimate Builder shows, you love that time of year because you could talk with everybody, you could commingle, and those now have kind of went away, and it's hard. Now you got just more rally event stuff to do. No. So man, like kind of like most of my plaques on this wall are pretty emotional ones to me that I've had. Like, starting on this, like the unveil bash, that was a huge one. No one besides like 5 people probably saw the bike when we did TV, so we kept it in a local community thing and supported all local stuff we could, so that was pretty cool. Some of the horse mag stuff from back in the day, like some of the unveils. Jeff Gazer's 500cc OSA bike, that was the weirdest project I've ever got in my shop, man. Like just odd, but we kind of made it look cool. Some of the checks and stuff, man, if I had a nickel every time some dumbass asked me if you can cash those still, I'm like sick of it. 2017, we built a 124, kind of looked like a CFL, and I also built an FXR at the same time. We did the street chopper hot bike build off. That was kind of neat. Got really nothing from it besides a t-shirt and a hat, and it was just cool to make memories in Tennessee. Glory Days stuff, again, some of the cool shit that we've won. The Bob K Award, he signed that in 2017. That was the most hungover I ever was in my life. We were out the night before, and I rode my shovel head all the way from, I think, Rapid City over to the Full Throttle. And Bob came up to me, he's like, hey, I just want to let you know you might have to talk and do stuff. But that one means a lot to me because Bob and I are good friends. First cover for the horse, that was neat, man, with our Discovery bike. That was pretty neat, just a different time, feel like that. Michael Lichter, first bike I built for one of his events over there at the Motorcycles is Art. That was neat. It was the 30 builders under 35 years old. Original ink stamping, I believe, for the News Herald, which was kind of neat. They actually gave us that. It's a steel cutout. Some riding on stuff. My buddy Bill Bish, who passed away last year, he was a huge local guy with a local mag, and Bill put me on a first cover. I mean, 2009, 2012. One of Michael Lichter's photos. I love that photo. He's personally said that to me. And then just some different stuff like Keith Ball stuff, Jogger Growth Partnership Award, our first place custom champion in 2018 for FXR, and then Dave Perowitz's award I talked about. But then this here was the first magazine I was ever in for Riding On, and it was just talking about who this kid was with a mini bike and kind of my outreach of what I was trying to do with the chopper company. And boy, it really gives some flashbacks. I think that was 2007. So just some cool stuff. The stickers, the only sticker one I want to talk about is Anthony Bourdain. Outside of chopper stuff, I think Anthony Bourdain and the way his lifestyle and mindset was gave me a lot of who I am beyond just custom bikes. I think the guy kind of just lived a life how he wanted to, and kind of just really showed you that a good drink and good food can kind of make camaraderie, So a lot of cool shit, man. But I have rooms and rooms of stuff, Spitfire, that was a picture my grandfather had 25 years ago. And I'm a huge World War II air fanatic. So, I mean, that's pretty big to me. And just some other plaques and stuff over there. So, projects, you know, if we're talking project and stuff, customer bikes, CFLs, my barn, there's a big red barn out back, build after build of stuff, you know, boxes of parts, customer stuff. So, always busy, you know, always cool stuff. Small shop, we do some fun stuff, machining stuff I take down the road to my buddy's shop. So I don't have to worry about room for, you know, mill and lathe and that kind of stuff. So pretty rad stuff. No, this is cool. This was going to be the raw. I mean, this would be the bigger one if I stay here. It was the first tank I ever made. Frame projects coming up. That one's pretty not getting there. Larry Kurt's frame, his long bike frame sitting over here. And then we just got this shovel headed with some more that are going to come in here, but we started storing. But that's where it's going to start. 77, man. So the fun stuff. Yeah, that's it. Just old and crusty, you know. It is different ever since the COVID era. It's just, you know, shows and the dynamic of what we were used to. You know, it sucks. It kind of like downsizes quick. But then you do have like the Fuel Clevelands, the Glory Days, the Mama Trieds, you know, you have all that good stuff, Born Free. So, you know, that's cool they're filling that in. But there definitely is, on that one, there's a fine line gradient of even younger than me getting into the scene. You know, there's a little bit like, not that I'm the old guy, but I also feel like there is a change in how the styling, not so much the bikes, but the lifestyle people are bringing in with that, which is cool. They're bringing it in, but like for me, it's like, it's a different taste for me for how I was brought up into it, you know? Looking at them photo albums again, like you saw real 70s bikers. You know, I grew up, I'm around people that are in their 70s now that were the real thing. You know, they lived it in hardcore, whether they were just normal people in a garage or they'd lived the true lifestyle of it. And man, I mean, I see it now and I'm like, I love that they're bringing back old stuff because like I'm an old World War II fan for like aircraft and I love vintage in the nostalgia feel. But at the same time, like you kind of got to create your own vibe and flow too. You can't just be dressing up in a fringe jacket and tight skinny jeans and be like, yeah, man, like I'm doing the chopper thing. Like it was already done. You know, it's like having Flap and Floozy era and you're trying to say you recreated it, you know, in a station wagon. Like it's not the same dynamic to me in my mind, you know. I always tell people I'm like the West Coast chopper generation. It's like let's do a tall frame, a rake, you know, and have it be like stop fast, go fast kind of saying, you know. But then like it was cool. Like I always blame Rick Bray for this one. When he started all the detail stuff and the sleeving and the extra super duper polishing shit, I'm like, man, dude, I like building bikes, but I don't like that much time. And I know Rick is a pure psychopath with his time and his and him and Christian Newman. Like when Christian Newman casted his own motor, I'm like, you know what? I'm okay being right here. I'm perfectly. I will buy the heads. I will polish the heads, but it stops. Like that's it. You know. This bike's got a cool story behind it. The motor was a 93-inch S&S crate motor, and that motor actually was out of the 2014 Discovery bike. And the whole reason it ended up in this bike was I went out to Daytona, I think 2015. Road got really busy, ran through sea fog, and just let the bike sit for like 8 or 9 months. And you can imagine how it looked. It was just, everything was just done, corroded, nasty. And then also the crazy thing is it's pretty close to original, you know, reproduction. The heads would leak like crazy. So I tore it down, repowder coated top end, had Doug polish some stuff. So I wanted that motor. I really wanted to do something with a knuck that was like a skinny bike, a good feel. The trans is out of it. I wanted to do a hydraulic foot clutch, kind of the days of like no one really talks about. Indian Larry was doing hydraulic foot clutches in 2002, 2003. And I wanted to do that with some Brembo stuff, but the 6-speed's nice. It's like driving a Mack truck. I mean, a 4-speed's nice, the sling gears, but that Franken tranny is pretty cool. But the whole thing about me with this bike is I wanted to build my first Springer. The only thing I used for designing the Springer was CAD just to get all the curves, but I drew everything out with a radius little finder and French curves, and I put it on a table, and I just set bars there, and I was like, yep, this looks cool, risers here. So I really did old school, and the mindset of that was like, I didn't want technology. I kind of wanted to do like, when I built this for What's the Skinny for Michael's exhibit in 2019, I wanted to do it like old school. Grinders, band saws, hack saws, you know. So it looks all machined, but I made the template, contact cemented it from CAD, and then I just cut it and I roughed it in and I sat there and I just ground it with a 4-inch grinder, and then I took my drill press and all I did was just whittle this and clean it all up and match it. And then I did use a mill to plunge everything through, but that was the first Springer ever built, engineered it, used some mid-USA parts for it and stuff. Bars were made. But the cool part was, I'm not a huge fan of like goosenecks, but I wanted something kind of to look like one. I did like a merged tube in it, X pipes. Like I think the only plated areas are the axle, exhaust tabs, and then the front tab for the trans and the rear tab for the engine. But everything's all arches, tubing, kind of like an NHRA feel, like a rail car. I kind of how the cage looks, but all that was just really to push my skills on this bike, man. Everything was precision fit up. I have videos to show like before they were welded. Everything's like you couldn't put a piece of paper under. So I really wanted to push my skills for building like a bare bones frame with a lot of cool intricate stuff. But it's just something that, like I told Michael, he wanted a skinny bike and I gave him a skinny bike. Like I can literally lane split with this, and I feel like there's this much room between cars because it's such a narrow bike. The paint, Mike Valentine did from Valera. I kind of did like the kind of like a cholo, kind of like the Dynabro look. I wanted something kind of different with it. I usually do silver leaf in striping, so I wanted something different. This color here, in the dark it looks black, but in the light it has kind of a burgundy approach to it. Under really good light it looks like a black cherry, but that's actually similar to the Delmonico red on the Dodge and Ram trucks. And then just kind of wanted like a coffin look. I thought of like a vampire coffin where it's like, you know, crushed velvet purple inside and a matte black finish. So just wanted something like that, but just something really to ride, you know, just something cool, something nobody could really take, because the hydraulic foot clutch is so soft that like you just want to stall it. It's hard to find the friction zone. I just wanted it to be just a really bare bones, nitty gritty piece. The last thing about it is the part on here that's all out of 304 stainless and has a brass piece on it. That is actually the motor mount from the original Discovery bike. So that was the one piece I wanted to steal to put back on this bike, just for like kind of a cool factor, and have people ask why that's randomly on there, because it doesn't match any other part of the bike. But the knobbies, that was a Bill Dodge thing. I was like, let's try it. It sounds like there's a freaking four-wheeler behind me every time I ride. I just hear just drone sound. So it's something kind of different, you know, but just clean, simple. I wanted it kind of like a Schwinn bicycle. I wanted no levers, no anything. That dental mirror is Harbor Freight. I snipped the end of it off, put a set screw in a bolt, and I just used that just to say I got a mirror. But besides that, man, I just clean and simple. That's all the bike was about. And you know, never wrap my pipes. I very rarely do that, but I just wanted something kind of cool. I didn't want the pipes to take away from all of the tubing work and stuff. So Kurt from Anything Goes, he builds cool oil tanks for really fair prices. So he was the first guy I've ever let build me an oil tank. And just a rad bike, man. AN fittings, a little bit of race inspired stuff, and still dependable as can be. I mean, bike's got 3,000-4,000 miles on it. Still one kick bike every time. And Kurt from Bare Bones did the seat. That was a funny joke. I wanted a chick holding the Glock that I saw on a painting, kind of like a Pulp Fiction style. And he said, well, the Glock could only be outlined and she'd have to be airbrushed and it looked like crap after you ride it. So he goes, what do you like? I said, I like black roses and grenades. And I'm not kidding you, Kurt. It's like, hey buddy, check your text messages. And he literally did the rising sun behind it because World War II theme, and then put the black rose on it. And then Kurt kind of just did his thing with a more. And it's cool because it's not a more like love and Italian and like all peace and love. I was just kind of phasing out doing a lot of stuff with my own bikes and going to do customers. And Michael called me. I was sitting in Florida and I was like, man, I'm not gonna really do bikes this year. I'm gonna just chill. I might do one event. And Michael goes, you want to build a bike? And I'm like, here we go again. So in the English translation, it's illicit affair. So I literally told my ex at the time, I said, this is like the illicit affair. I said, this thing is literally the wedge to happiness and fun. And, you know, ironically, like, I think my dad had a massive heart attack, had financial troubles. Like, it definitely lived its name up. Like, this was the worst time to build a bike and do stuff. But yeah, Kurt did all the cool leather work, man. He just, what a talented guy. I think everyone's used him by now. And amazing work, man. Ride's good, strong as can be, and you know, it's fun as possible, man. When you're a parent, it changes the dynamic quickly with chopper stuff. It was like, wow, like, you know, how to move around. And like, I always like, I want to separate. Like, I don't want to be working when I have my daughter. I want to just have my daughter and that's it, you know. And I have a good separation line because growing up, my dad was work. And a lot of times he sacrificed it. I didn't see him. I didn't spend time with him, you know, until we did the chopper stuff. So an average week, I usually tell people, man, it's like a clusterfuck. It's like putting a squirrel in a cage that just got caught and like it's trying to like go around 100 miles an hour. Like some days I'll wake up and I'm like, I don't have much to do. Maybe I got to weld some parts or I got to run some errands. The guilt, I go to bed at night, I'm like, I got to have something else to do. And that's honestly the addiction of all the years working. I'm like, okay, I did like 6 hours a day, you know, or like maybe today I'll just like sneak out on the bike and run some errands and throw shit in my pockets. And then some days it's like, fiance is like, are you gonna come in? Did you die out there? Did you get pulled into a machine? Like, and I never know, but I kind of can. It's like I kind of know when stuff's gonna get wild with stuff, depending on the workflow. But and trying to moderate. I know. I mean, I always worked crazy hours, and it was like if this frame has to get put together, we're gonna do it right now. Well, why can't we just tap it, clean up all the surfaces, throw a motor in, and then tomorrow we'll put the wheels and front end on? Like, no, no, no. In Jesse's mind, it was like we got to do it this way. So a typical week, man, can be either like super simple, it gives me anxiety, or it's like so busy that everyone think I died. Like literally, like we were joking about getting a hold of me. My phone's on silent right now, sitting on the windowsill because it used to be, man, I hope someone calls me for work, and now it's like I'll call you in like maybe like 5 to 7 business days. Like it's pretty wild. But dude, when I look back, I never thought it'd be this busy. I mean, a typical week is like I still just think I'm working on 1 or 2 projects, but I'll be a year and a half behind on stuff booked. I think when you're a dad with a daughter, it brings out a whole different perspective on, you know, a child. Your sons are your sons. They'll be boys. I see that with my stepsons and their dad. But having a daughter, like it brings out your innocence, but also you can make a little wild child like this. So she's full of energy and fun stuff. You done? Enough interview? You gonna say bye-bye? Say hi? Say hi? Man, every time I don't know how it's gonna change. I always tell people here's the level of the company or what's gonna happen, but it could be a bigger welding project next week. It could be the barrage of CFLs taking over my shop, now. So I would say, man, really the thing is just still making a solid foundation of where the shop's at. Always improving my skills. I mean, man, Chris, like that's my biggest thing is even in my 30s now, I don't think I'm complacent with, I'm okay with this. I want to expand further and, push my craft further and further. And also I think still share that. But with the new move, like in anything, it resets you a little bit. And, you kind of not plateau, but you got to focus on like getting this all back up to par. And I think a focus for the company will be, growing, expanding, larger square footage kind of stuff, so I can really do what I wanted to do a couple years ago. But still, man, pumping out choppers. I'm blessed as could be, dude. Like to be 33, have a dream of 20 years now. I mean, we're celebrating 20 years this year. And it's like, I don't really market. I don't push it. I mean, everybody kind of comes to us with the name we have. So that's kind of the nicest part of it. So the growth is just, man, existing, do more events, kind of also on the sideline is more family stuff. Family's just as important as your business and cultivating stuff you're doing with that too. My name is Jesse Srpan. This is Raw Iron Choppers located out of Perry, Ohio, and I'm a Dennis Kirk garage builder.